Hello and welcome back to the Brave Talks podcast, where we teach you the business of being creative. Today, I'm so excited to share that our guest is Paula de Diego, the founder, CEO, and creative lead at LandIt. LandIt focuses on social media strategy, podcast strategy, and influencer partnerships for tech startups in the B2C and fintech world. Not only is Paula an agency founder, but she's also worked as a freelancer herself and taught freelancers how to build their businesses. And this is actually how I know Paula. We were working together to teach freelancers how to build their portfolios. So we thought, why not come together and chat about it? So this episode is about that, building your portfolio, but then we actually take it a step further and we tell you how to attract clients to see that amazing, beautiful portfolio you just made. I think there's a lot of gems in this episode, so I hope you take some notes. And if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. Okay, enjoy it. It's been very cool to see you grow from when we worked together on another project into just really, bringing more people into your team. And obviously we talk all the time about new clients and new leads coming into kind of your world. So yeah, I'm really happy that you're here to kind of talk about these two things, because I think that you kind of have mastered it in a way where maybe my mind travels first. Feels like building a portfolio. This is something that I think has really gained a lot of traction in terms of conversation over the past few years. And I think maybe it's because there's been so many new portfolio building sites and tools that have been coming out. Too many almost, right? And I think people are kind of confused, like, where do I start? Where do I build it? How do I even do this? Is it the right time to do this? But I think at a baseline, no matter what industry some people work in, I think that there are a few different elements of a portfolio that kind of always should be there. And I would love, Paula, for you to kind of give me your insight on what those elements are. What are the things that have kind of always been a part of your portfolio?
So, in my opinion, portfolios are not just like images, because if you show an image, obviously an image can say millions of words, but you need to say something else. You need to kind of explain the situation to a client, but also tell them what was your challenge, what did you experience throughout the project, because they can learn a lot from that. It's not just like, hey, this is my project, look at it, look how pretty it is. No, I need substance. I need things to read, so I can understand how you work, what type of clients you take, what are your services, and then obviously like the process of it all. Because sometimes people might offer the same service but work differently. And then I always, for example, like to end project portfolios with a testimonial or a message that a client sent me about the project or something like that, because that gives insight into what the client experienced and what they feel about the project.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a reference. But yeah, portfolio website needs obviously portfolio projects, needs testimonials. I would say if you're at the very first stage where you don't have a service specifically, you're just figuring things out, don't include a service section, but maybe say, I like to work in these types of industries or these types of services, or maybe just like I would love to work with X, Y, and Z brand, so that they maybe look at it and say, I'm this brand. Maybe I want to work with you. Just use a lot of storytelling, because when you just say, I'm this, this, and this, I'm just, okay, but this person is also this, this, and this, and this. I want to know more. I want to feel like I'm getting to know you when I look at a portfolio. So it needs to build a story when you're scrolling down.
Yes, I love that. And that, like, it honestly kind of leads naturally into something that I was already thinking about asking you, was really how do you kind of make your portfolio stand out in a very competitive market? Because a client is going to land on your portfolio, and if they're looking to kind of work together, they're looking to fill some type of freelance role, I'm sure that they're looking at a lot of portfolios every day. They're on the hunt, they're busy. So I think a key indicator of like a good portfolio is having that information, right? Like, what was the challenge? How did I work through it? And what was the result? But keeping it concise, keeping it visual, and just like brief. Because if you have an entire page or an external PDF, like the likelihood of someone going through that is very small. And I loved your idea around, if you don't have specific services that maybe you're clear on, maybe you just don't put them on there. You can just say, yeah, like, I'm interested in these industries. And so if a client is interested and they don't see that service on your site or on your portfolio, they're like, okay, they don't offer that. I'm going to go to the next. So
Exactly.
I think that's really smart. I actually haven't heard that many times. Yeah.
You can also post that on social media. It's not just on your website, it's also, you can post it everywhere. But one thing I also wanted to highlight is portfolio projects are when you're on social media. So you need to
Mhm.
catch people's attention in the first 6 seconds or 10 seconds. So if you have, I don't know, a boring title or like an image and you don't really say anything and you're just like, here's a project, look at it,
Mhm.
people are gonna be like, I mean, it's the same thing that I see everywhere. So
Yeah.
you, what I usually do is I create this catchy title and like a bit of a summary of the project, and then I go into who is the client, because most of the times you might not have like super important clients, but you're like, this is a really cool client that I really like, and I really like their values and their mission and everything. I want to highlight who they are because the project is, it wouldn't be here without them. So listing who they are and then listen to their website allows them, one, to get more views on their website, which is cool. Like as a marketer, you're like, oh, I want to get you more views. But two, you're just like introducing the story. You're introducing the world you're building for them in the portfolio project. So it's just a way to catch attention.
Yeah, that's so funny you mention it because on my studio site, I actually just added a section that is kind of like a blog, and it was more about like the reasons why we decide to work with clients. And it talks briefly about our work with them, but it's more about like why them and why are we interested and what good are they doing in the world. And it's really fun because then you kind of get to reconnect with past clients where you're writing these blogs, you're writing more about them than you are about you, and they're like, whoa, that they understand what we're doing, they're still even committed to thinking about us, talking about us. And I think it's even a way, after the fact of working together, you can kind of circle back and reconnect. So I love that. Yeah, I think it's really
Like
all about
sliding
storytelling.
into the DMs.
Literally slide into the DMs, be like, I just wrote this blog about you. Yeah, no, I love those tips. And yeah, I think to the next point about making yourself stand out, right? Like there's a lot of people who offer similar services, right? How do we break through? How do we make it unique to us or to our agency and our team? What are some of the things that kind of come to mind?
I would say, for example, in the marketing world, we use a lot of numbers because numbers kind of represent the impact that the campaign or the project had. So using numbers is always cool. Like, for example, I just posted on social because this website, Contra, is a freelance platform, and they just recently shared their discovery score, which is pretty cool to know how you score along the 700,000 plus freelancers on the platform. And it's like numbers. So top 1% of creatives, so top 5%. And it's kind of the same thing that companies do when looking for new hires. They say, I'm top 5 in Glassdoor, or was awarded this for like the best company to work for in 2024. Things like that always help. So
Mhm.
it can be numbers about the project, it can be numbers about your agency, yourself. It could also be awards, it could be certificates that you got, things that add value to who you really are and what you're already offering. So it's kind of like a plus.
Yeah.
Or even like saying, I have 10 years of experience in this field.
Mhm.
Look at me.
Yeah. Something that I've heard from a lot of freelancers is how difficult it is to talk about themselves, which I totally empathize with because when you're running, a one person business, sometimes it feels like that. You're just like, I'm constantly talking about me. I'm constantly talking about what I'm doing. But in
Yeah,
reality, like that's just the nature of it, obviously. But I think when it comes to like sharing those numbers or sharing even bits and parts of yourself and your experience and why you're kind of like best suited for these jobs, it can be hard because you have this resistance, right? You don't want to hype yourself up. But to your point, that is what resonates with a lot of people. It catches their eye, and then they get to learn more about you and they get to kind of read through your portfolio work and whatnot. I think it's really about that,
exactly.
like the moment of like, how do I just get their attention for 6 seconds, like you said?
Yeah, and also getting those numbers, like the actual numbers for the project, means reconnecting with the client. So, for example, you
Huh.
created this website for, I don't know, a client, and it like a month or two pass since you finished the project and you want to know some numbers since they launched the website. You contact the client and you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm building a portfolio project about this project that we did. Can I get some numbers like number of visits, what clicked or
Mhm.
what didn't, all that stuff? And then say like, by the way, I'm having an offer or I just introduced this new service in case you're interested. It's a way to get reconnect with our clients and get more money, more
Yeah.
service.
Maybe for some people who are listening to us kind of talking about building out projects and all of these things, there's probably going to be a large group of people who are like, but wait, I don't even have a client. Like I'm at ground like one, right? I have no experience, but I still want to build a portfolio because it kind of gives me this professionalism. It makes me feel like I'm a bit, it's a serious business,
You're
And
new.
so, yeah. So I think maybe we can talk a bit about just how do you even do that if you haven't had experience in the past. I know that we've talked a lot about mock projects.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, mock projects are, just passion projects, if you will, kind of fake projects that you kind of create on your own time and you put them into your portfolio as a portfolio project. And really the goal is to showcase your skills. That's the only thing, right? You're just trying to showcase to a client what you can do and how well you can do it. And I'd love to hear kind of your take on mock projects, if you've ever been in that position or if that's something that you would kind of advise to people to kind of take on.
Actually, well, a few months ago, it was the top one portfolio project that was seen. It was this mock project I did for, it's called Favorite Notification. It was a beauty app, kind of similar to Sephora, but different. And I just created the whole branding, social media, even app design, which was kind of like mock projects also help you kind of enter new parts of your business that you wouldn't know. So you know design, but you haven't done, for example, website design, or you haven't done app design. Or if you're on the other side, you haven't done branding or you haven't done social media. So it helps you kind of like investigate how it goes, see if you like it, if you don't, see how it turns out, see if people like it, if people are interested in that service. And in my case, it was literally, I already had projects, but I was just like, let me just like create one. I don't know. Why not? And it was the top one most viewed
Wow.
portfolio project.
Yeah.
And you can get these type of projects all over. Like if it's on social media, you have accounts dedicated to mock WordPress and projects. You have websites that can help you generate a new name, that can help you generate an idea. But you also like see in everyday life, you're like, oh, a lot of people recreate branding for well-known brands,
Hmm.
but you can also go down the street. In our case, we live in Mexico,
Yeah.
see a taco stand and you're like, let me recreate the branding for you. And you
Yeah.
can even offer them afterwards, like, hey, this is the branding that I created for you. I did it for free if you want to work together in the future.
I think if you're kind of in your community, it's like some small local brands who just need a bit of tweaking and help. And whether it's small or big, I think if you're going to do it anyways, there could be a connection to be made there and something to kind of explore. And I love the idea of like actually finding issues, like looking at a company and finding, like being curious and finding an actual issue. And it helps when like these issues are something that other people can recognize, right? If there's something that the whole world on Twitter is just like, why does this company not have this thing? Like, why does
Twitter.
Google Flights literally? Why does Google Flights not have an app? Like, why
Yeah.
is that? You know what I mean? So it's like that is a good moment to be like, okay, I'm gonna build out a mock app for Google Flights, And I think like, yeah, when you actually see a problem, it's easier to kind of make a mock project, find a solution to that, and kind of pitch it.
It helps with like if you're cold emailing a brand, you can just like, hey, I'm here. This is my name. I created this project because I found this bug or this necessity, like you said with the
Yeah.
Google flights. I mean, I don't know who you would email at
The
Google.
Google Flights is not a great example, but yes.
But it's kind of like a way, it helps you with pitching because you don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to be like super superficial in the email. You're just like, hey, I found this problem, I created this, check it out, maybe we can work together in the future.
Exactly. Right. Right. Yeah. I think it gives someone kind of a bit of curiosity about you. I think that when you go about mock projects, there's still a way to do it strategically. It's never going to be a waste of time unless you allow it to be a waste of time. Like do it with strategy, do it with actual curiosity. Do it for companies and brands that you're interested in, industries that you're interested in, because those are the types of things that people are going to see on your portfolio.
That is key. Like, do it for industries and projects you want to work in.
Yeah,
Because if you create a project, for example, and the projects that you have in your portfolio need to be for the services that you want to offer and the industry you
exactly.
want to collab with. I have projects that are really cool in my, like, I worked with in the past. They're not in my portfolio because I'm not offering, for example, branding
Mm-hmm.
at the moment. So I'm just like, yes, it's really cool, but I don't want people to be confused about my services right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that like leads me into updating your portfolio, right? Because I think some people start a portfolio, they put everything they've ever done, and then they never touch it again. And then
no.
this issue comes up where, okay, clients are starting to see this. They're not really paying attention to how old or how new some of the things are on your portfolio. So they're thinking that you do all of these things still. You work in all these industries, you offer all these services, and maybe that's not the case, right? And so I think it is about like funneling it in a bit, like getting a little bit tighter with what you're showing, and what you're showing is what you want to attract. Like that is really the name of the game. And maybe at first it is, a few projects that are kind of scattered along different industries, if that's where you're at. But as time goes on, things need to be updated. So I guess my question for you is like, how often do you go in and you update your portfolio? Yeah.
I'm very guilty about this because I haven't updated my portfolio in like a couple months. But I would say like every couple months, because like every couple months, you just kind of, I don't know about other people, but in my case, I just kind of shift my business in
Mm,
a way, like for these services, because I saw how it worked in the past couple months and nobody hired me for those. So I'm just gonna put them in the back burner,
yeah.
look at them, optimize them, and then see. But then it
Mhm.
means the portfolio needs to be updated. So, for example, now I'm offering podcast services. I just added podcast projects because I worked in podcasts before. I just didn't add them before.
Mhm.
Or deleting the branding projects. You can not only be the projects, it could also be the services. I only have two services in my portfolio right now, my website, because I'm rebranding everything and I just need to
Yeah.
rewrite everything.
Yeah.
So I would say a couple of months. Look at it from the view, like the client's view. What do I want to see from this person to hire them? And then don't use like websites that are very complicated to use and to update,
Mm,
because then it just takes you longer to update and you're just like, oh, I'm
yeah.
tired.
Yeah. Try to like create as least amount of friction as possible.
When was the last time you updated your portfolio, for example?
Actually, mine was very recently. It was like maybe like 3 weeks ago. But I do want to set even just a moment in my calendar. I'm not really thinking about it actively, but you should be. Like you should be questioning what's working, what's not, and also learning from the clients that you're working with. Like maybe you had a service they hired you for. And then as the project is kind of evolving, time's going on, there's something else that's like an adjacent service that you realize, oh, I could totally offer them. And so then you do that, it goes well, that should be added to your portfolio, right? Like you just were able to learn like, okay, there's services outside of just this bubble that I initially thought that actually go along with the services that I offer, And in your experience, what platforms have you tried, or maybe some of your friends have tried that seemingly work out well? And yeah, what's good for a very beginner?
For me, in my case, my portfolio website right now is on Contra, the freelance platform. I am building a portfolio, kind of like a sister brand for podcasting, and that's on Framer. I've used Webflow before, but I feel like it's a bit complicated for beginners. I've heard people use Squarespace or Wix. I think for those, like, they have a lot of templates, so it's just easier to create. With Framer, it's the same thing. They have the Framer template shop, and you can buy. I bought templates and I use free ones too, so you can just experiment what you want. And with freelance platforms, it's just easy because sometimes they just give you the website in itself and you don't really have to do anything. I wouldn't
Yeah.
recommend, for example, building a portfolio out of HTML.
No, right. That's almost like obviously you can teach yourself how to do that later down the road. You can hire someone to do that later down the road. But like in the early days, that's a blocker, right? Like that's going to stop you from publishing anything and that's going to hinder your business. So, yeah, the idea is like you can create something that is visually pleasing, that you feel proud of, but it doesn't have to take months to build out. So, yeah, I agree. Like sites like Squarespace and Wix have a lot of templates, pretty user friendly, pretty affordable as well.
I've
I've
also
also,
heard of Show It for photographers and
yeah,
stuff.
Showit's, yeah, another one that has a lot of templates. I've also kind of played around in Framer before, and I really liked it. Yeah, like a lot of templates. Framer's like honestly the easier version of Webflow in my eyes. Like they kind of have a
Mm-hmm.
similar feel, but it's so much different. Like Framer is so much easier.
See it as like a mix between Webflow and Figma.
And Figma, yes, yeah,
Because it
literally.
has kind of like the same structure as Figma in like the UI,
Exactly.
but you can publish a website. So it's just
Yeah, and you can actually like build out things in Figma and then
move
there's
it
like
to
widgets and plugins that just move it over to Framer and like build it out. So it's, yeah, it's really nice. Framer is honestly a really great product. Something else that hasn't been mentioned is ReadyMag. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
heard of ReadyMag, but they kind of started as like a more of like a magazine, like an online magazine platform, and then it turned into like full on websites, portfolios. I just realized like, whoa, they give you so many tools that like you would have to know how to code on any of these other platforms essentially.
Mhm.
They have different pricing options. They have, yeah, a lot of like customized fonts and buttons and animations. It's
Yeah.
honestly a pretty impressive tool. I want to
I
learn
think
more
it's
about
the
it. If you're kind of sitting there thinking to yourself, okay, I'm not ready to put money into things yet. If you're really at that stage, you could still build out like a Canva website or a Google presentation website or a Notion. Yeah, Notion. I would choose Notion out of any of those options. You can always have your work somewhere, whether it's online as a website or a PDF, something that showcases what you do, I think is the baseline of what we're trying to get
yeah.
across.
I mean, the most traditional way of showcasing portfolio is a portfolio book. The equivalent of like the digital world of that is a PDF.
Yeah.
And for example, if you're a writer, a blog can also be your portfolio because you're showcasing how you write in the blog. So if you don't know how to create it, maybe a Canva site helps because you can add video. I would just like experiment with what you do. Be creative. At the end of the day, we're all creative people.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that we didn't mention is for strategy based
Mm-hmm.
freelancers, because I'm a strategist, it's very hard to add strategy portfolio projects in terms of images and stuff. So maybe just like you don't have to use images that you've created. Maybe it's images from the company itself, or
Yeah, I've
maybe it's
done that
like
too.
the document that you send, maybe like a redacted version of it, something that
Yep.
shows visually what you did. Or maybe like for example, I did influencer sourcing. That's one of our services. We don't really have anything to show because we didn't really work with them, but we can just like find the creators that they work with that we gave them in the list. Just
Exactly.
there's ways.
There's ways to work around it. That's a very good point. That's what I've been doing as well. Like whenever I'm doing product strategy, what visual things am I supposed to do? Like post pictures of onboarding? Like probably not. Instead, I'm pulling from more like brand images and things that they've posted and just like trying to give it life, right? Once you have your portfolio, the next step it's like, okay, the clients, where are they at? How do I find them? So I guess maybe just for starters, when it comes to your business, what kind of strategies have you seen work when it comes to gaining new leads? And maybe it's so different for different types of leads that you've had. So maybe just walk us through kind of what you've experienced in terms of that.
It's been a roller coaster. So I think everyone starts with friends and family. Back at the when I started my studio, I started with a partner, and she had a lot of entrepreneur friends and family and stuff. So we started with that. And then I started joining like summits, joining groups, joining communities, freelance platforms, just like looking at everything, applying to everything that I saw that I fit my what I wanted to work on. I'm in my stage of the business where I'm networking, actively really networking with people. And it's amazing to see how like everyone's willing to like connect you and be like, oh, I need a social media manager. Here's Paula. Or I need, for example, a brand strategist. Here's Sam. It's like that you just don't expect it. But it happens when you start connecting with people. And at the beginning I was super shy. I was just like, I'm afraid of talking to people. And then you just kind of start talking to clients and start talking to just colleagues, freelancers, and you just kind of open up a bit more.
It's literally just about connecting with people who inspire you, that make you curious. Like, connect with people that you actually are interested in, right? Because then it won't feel like this job. It won't feel like this stressful thing. Like, you actually want to talk to them, and not even just for your business, but maybe you'll learn something in just one conversation. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the mindset for me around more the networking bit. And like you said, I think it's, yeah, getting over almost again this fear of talking about yourself and your business, because you have to, because people know that you exist. Like, that is the crux of finding clients. So yeah, I think there's a bit of like confidence that has to be built. The client is coming to you, or they're looking to hire someone who knows more about a certain topic. Like, they're looking for an expert. If you are not confident and you say think or maybe, it's like, wait, no, they're hiring you because they want to trust someone to do the job and know what they're doing. They're not hiring someone who maybe knows or thinks they know something. So that's, yeah.
Don't be discouraged by the people offering the same services that you're offering for
Yeah,
way cheaper, because it happens.
it happens.
Don't be discouraged. Like, price your services the way that you want, the way the industry wants. Like, you don't have to charge $10 for a logo just because somewhere in India freelancer is charging that. Because you
Exactly.
see that on Upwork and like Fiverr.
Right.
It's
And I
not
think
the reality.
I think that's a reason that I don't naturally gravitate toward those platforms. But like you said, if you were to be on them, just stick to what you know, stick to what feels good. Because also, for me at least, like, putting myself again into the client's shoes, if I see a service that's $10, I almost immediately am like, that's not a very high quality job that's being done. There's no way that that can be what I'm looking for. And I know that some people probably do great work for $10, but I think there's also something to be said about making your services at a normal rate showcases that, like, I'm going to charge you $500 because I have to do X, Y, Z things. I'm using this many different parts of my skill set. Like, I think it does almost give you some type of edge against maybe even people who are lowballing. And I guess maybe another part of client outreach or just attracting clients, I think that I've heard a lot of friction points against is using social media. Obviously, you're a social media expert. You know how much social media can be such a great tool for attracting the right people. What would you say to people that maybe are just scared to become kind of like this online personality in a sort, or put their business as like the personality? What's your advice?
Pick the platforms your clients are on. So most clients, for example, are on LinkedIn. I hate LinkedIn. I'm a social media manager that hates LinkedIn. Yes, I think everyone like hates it. But you have to be there in a way. So just like comment updates about your projects, things like that.
Yeah.
If you're a designer, for example, there's a big design community on Twitter, X,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of creative and like social media managers, and I feel like more female designers on Threads, the
Mm-hmm.
equivalent of Twitter by Meta.
Yeah. Instagram, yeah.
But I really like it right now. I'm really liking it.
Yeah.
And then on Instagram, obviously, like, you would have to show your face in a way if you want to. You can also just show your projects. It doesn't really matter if you show your face, as long as like Instagram consider it this window shopping experience for clients.
Yeah.
So if you're a creator, obviously you have to show your face. If you're a designer, you don't really have to if you don't want to. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a developer, you don't really have to if you don't want to. But
Yeah.
a lot of developers, for example, developer videos that just have like, you know how on Loom your face shows in like a
Mm-hmm.
circle? Same thing, but with like them writing code and stuff. It just really like you need to find places where clients are, your ideal clients are at. And for the Twitter, LinkedIn, Thread type of content that's not video related. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to.
Yeah. I think some people hear social media and they immediately are like, "Oh, I have to be a influencer." And I'm like, "Wait, no. Like, you don't have to make a reel or a TikTok ever if you don't want to." I think for some people, showing their personality and being super involved in that way works. And I think for other people, showcasing their work and kind of keeping their personality or personal life out of things also works. So I think social media at the end of the day is just, again, another avenue, another funnel for people to find you. And if you really think about it, like, LinkedIn is essentially like a little search engine, right? Like if someone really wants to hire a social media manager, instead of Googling it, a lot of people are going to go to LinkedIn. They're going to look
Mhm.
up social media managers freelance for hire or something of those keywords. Like I've had two people reach out to me and I'm like, where did you end up finding me? Because you didn't send a form, or like you didn't just fill out my form on my website. So like how did you find me? And they're like, oh, LinkedIn. Like you came up as an option when we searched something. And I was like, whoa, like that's crazy. So I think even if you're not actively posting that much, even just having your presence there is a win. What are some what are some red flags to look out for when it comes to new potential clients coming your way?
If they're just like, I want a logo. Some people, they just start the conversation like it's a transaction. So it's just like, I want this. I'm like, hello, how are you? My day is going well. Nice to meet you. Also, I really recommend doing discovery calls because of the vibes. Seeing clients be like, I'm in the sofa chilling out and I'm having a conversation with you. I'm like, that's not really the vibe I'm going for. So, no.
Yeah, no.
Also, you have a connection with them, and if you don't feel like it, or if you don't get the vibes of them being a good client, it's okay.
Yeah.
Them paying you way below your rate that you have on like your website or things like that.
On your website, do you list out the prices that you typically charge? Okay. Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's almost it almost feels like a tricky space because for some clients, maybe your rates look different than other clients, but obviously there's always a baseline, right, of like what you're going to charge. Maybe it changes a bit. I've heard of a lot of freelancers who don't put their prices externally because again, like if Apple reached out, you're probably going to charge them more than you're going to charge a mid-sized company, something like that.
For that, you use the starting at.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's what I would advise. Like, if you're going to put it out there, yeah, use some language that doesn't make it like solidified.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also think that like having a kind of a form, a contact form that has several questions that would really feel beneficial for you to know before going into a discovery call or even before maybe taking one, right? Like if a potential client reaches out and they're like, for my budget, I can only, pay $100. And you're probably like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time and get on a discovery call.
I do have a form, but they rarely use it. It's
Mhm.
more of a, hey, book this discovery call on Calendly. In my
Mhm.
case, you can also use call.com and call, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you add a form when they're
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask, like,
submitting.
do you put it somewhere in that flow? Okay. Yeah. That makes
And I
sense.
have like specific questions that kind of filter them out. So like budget, it's the type of business, it's what they need, they
Hmm.
want from me. Because sometimes they say like, "Oh, I want social media management," and they're like, "No, I want like a full-on strategy for marketing and blah blah blah." I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's
You're like,
not social media."
these are different. These are different things. Or like someone being like, I had someone literally say, but I need you to teach me how to make a TikTok. And I was like, well, that's definitely not something that I've had to do before. So yeah, I think, yeah, having those questions are really, really
Mhm.
important.
And also when you have the discovery, so like there are different stages of like the client acquisition. One is getting the client, obviously, then the discovery call, and then during the discovery call, you have a list of questions that you need to ask them. For
Hmm.
example, in my case, I always ask them, what makes you unique? Who are you targeting?
Hmm.
What are your goals? How do you see success in this project? What do you want?
Yeah. What have you tried before? What failed?
Mhm.
Yeah, very, very important. Once you do land one of these clients, like having that prepared, which we're going to be sharing some more content around and like having kind of templated worksheets for you to kind of fill out. So that's exciting. But yeah, there's a way to also keep them engaged during that first call because if you come with no questions, it is probably 10 times scarier for them to think about hiring someone who didn't ask any of these important things, who need to be prepared. It shows that you've thought through things, that like you need that information to do the job. So if you're not asking the questions, then how are you doing the job right?
Also,
Yeah.
research them like before the call,
Yeah, of
research them.
course. Yeah.
And you might not like what you see. I always research them when I got the message from them, like the inquiry, and before the call. because I might see some things before the call that I haven't seen in the inquiry stage, and you might not like some things, and you can always say no. Like the
Yeah.
way, like saying no to things is always there. You don't
Yeah.
have to like work with them.
Such a powerful skill to say no. And it can be very hard in the beginning because you just want to take on whatever you can. And I think it's good to push yourself outside of your boundaries a little bit, but then there's always an extent where you're like, okay, this is not feeling right, feeling good, feeling like something that I could actually benefit from after the job's done. Maybe one last bit to touch on in terms of the client outreach or just kind of client communication in general
Mhm.
is, you wrap up a project, and something that we mentioned earlier to put on your portfolio is a testimonial, kind of like something from a client that says, it was so great working with Paula. She did X, Y, and Z things. You should hire her. Obviously that's not a great example, but just a statement that says like, the work was well done and that we enjoyed working with you. How do freelancers get this information from clients? What's been some strategies that you've used to kind of get testimonials?
Offboarding packet. I have like, we can share it with them.
Yeah.
But basically, there's this packet of information for, especially for like bigger projects, because we have like two different. So for bigger projects that are like one time done, I always give them information about like their files that we're giving them. If it's a branding project, like what are PNG, GPI, like all that stuff, SPH, all the things that they're gonna be like, what are those words? Like, what is this? So I explain everything in detail to them, give them necessary documents that they might have. There are some services that I give freebies, so like free documents or free strategies and stuff like that that they can use. One section is for getting the testimonials. I'm asking them questions like, what did you think about this project? What was your experience? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I think there are like 7 questions or so. And the last one is, do you want to give a testimonial?
Yeah.
They always do. And the questions are with stars, so it's just easier for them to like fill it out. They don't have to write a lot of things. And then the last one is a way to keep contact. So like, this is my email, this is my website, this is my Calendly in case you want to talk at
Hmm.
any time. That's kind of the offboarding for one time. And then for the social media management part of it, like the more retainer type of projects, I'm starting to implement it, and it's asking every 3 months or so, what are you thinking about this project? How can we improve? Stuff like that. I'm starting to implement it because I saw it on a course that I did, and it was really effective for them. So they do it every 3 months and 9 months or so. And usually retainer projects are like 1 year or more.
Yeah.
So you don't really get that feedback from them unless you ask for it.
Yeah. And sometimes with retainer clients, it's like you can almost feel it's just like friends because you've been working together for so long. And sometimes, it's almost tricky to like, even though it doesn't sound like it, but it's kind of tricky to ask your friend this like professional, like, here's this packet for you to fill out. But it's important. And it's like, these are still your clients. And whether you get along on a personal level or not, like that feedback is really important. And maybe it feels even awkward for them to critique you because you guys are so close. So I think for every reason, I really love this, and I want to implement that more. Like I like the 3 month, like if with
Mhm.
retainer clients, and yeah, I'm so curious to see kind of like your offboarding packet. That's really neat.
I do it on Notion. Like there are people that do it PDF form. Everything in my business is on Notion. So and what's good about it is you create kind of this document or like page on Notion, and then you just duplicate it, remove every single thing about the information, and then send it to the client.
People.
And I feel like more traditional companies, like bigger companies, are also starting to hire for contractors that they weren't before, or they would hire an agency or something like that, and they're feeling like a freelancer is also kind of like an agency. Like the agency world is like freelancers and agencies are kind of the same.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you can go up to people, even if it's like on digitally, but also in person at conferences and stuff, and be like, I really admire you and your work and everything that you do. I'd love to have your contact information because I did that and it was for a big portfolio media company here in Mexico, and I got their number
Yeah,
and their
ask
email.
and you shall receive. Like you have to ask for what you want. Like the universe is never going to afford you the thing that you want unless you put one step in front of the other and you
Mhm.
put yourself out there. And honestly, I think the biggest rule of thumb is that people love to talk about themselves. Like if you're going to walk up to someone and compliment them and compliment their life's work or like their past 5 years, 10 years of work, they're going to say something back. They're going to be like, thank you so much. Who are you? And like they're going to engage. Like they want to talk about themselves and their work. Like that's always been the case, you know?
Also, be genuine when reaching out to people. Because, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I got a call email this morning and she was like, I loved your work on your portfolio and your social media, but also I listened to your interview with like a podcast interview that you did 1 year ago, and it was very inspiring. And I like this, and this about you. And like you said, like people love to hear.
Yeah.
And I looked at her portfolio and it was really cool. And I'm like, if I ever need help with like it was she was a designer, if I ever need help with designers, I'm gonna reach out to you because you were
Yeah,
very genuine. So
exactly. Be a good human. I think we can wrap it there. I think these are all really good tips, and I'm sure that we could go on and on. But we're going to
mhm,
be putting out kind of like a joint blog and
mhm.
also kind of like a worksheet template so that you can learn about all these things. You can hear us talk about all these things, but then you can actually put it into action. Again, put that like one foot in front of the other and kind of get things rolling. Those will all be shared on Brave University, which is super exciting. And I think to kind of close this out, I would like to do this fun thing. What is one question that you would love to ask to the next person that will be on the podcast? Obviously, you don't know who they are. It could be about
Uh,
anything business, creative, or anything. I mean, if you want to go wild.
what was the one project that you were like, wow, I really like this type of project, service, industry, whatever, that made you decide to switch and like change course?
I love that. Ooh, I'm excited. I'm like already thinking about how I'm gonna like put these, like stitch them together like this dramatic, like on the next episode. Well, thanks so much, Paula,
Thank
for being
you.
on. We'll put your contact info on Brave University again. Just thanks for being here and sharing all
Thank
your
you.
insights. I'm really happy for you and your business, and I think that you have a lot of momentum right now. So I'm
Thank
excited
you.
to stick around and watch it play out.
Thank you. I'm also super excited for your evolution and everything that you have
Thank you.
accomplished.
So we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.